Christopher Norris here from mining.com.au. Joining me today is Aurora Energy Metals Managing Director Greg Cochran. Greg, great to see you.
Good to be back again. Certainly exciting times for us and lots to talk about.
Greg, as you said, a tremendous start to 2024 with uranium having touched 100 per pound. Give us your thoughts.
Actually, you know what's interesting? I see people talking about the fact that, this is the highest, that it has been since 2007, et cetera, et cetera. I put a slightly different slant on it. Those of us that have got a longer memory than just 2007, and many in the industry are a lot younger than 2007 and kind of, new to it. The reality is this is only the second time in history that the uranium spot price has breached $100 a pound. So that's a slightly different nuanced message in terms of where we're at in the state of play in the industry. And so for me, personally, that's been in and out of uranium, originally as dabbled as a student in the 80s, and then in the 90s at the sale of Langer Heinrich, which people don't necessarily know about that history, but from my old company, from Gencor Billiton, they sold it. And then later on, Paladin picked it up. So for me, I've got this longer perspective on uranium, and it's just so exciting to see it today.
And we're expecting to see a new wave of uranium investors start to trickle into the market. For those who aren't familiar, give us a brief overview of your flagship project in the US.
Yeah, thanks. I think that is the case in that, we've captured the early money. There are some wonderful large funds, that have jumped in, boots and all. Of course, most people would know about Sprott and the financial engineering side of the uranium market. But out there, we've not seen or attracted broader industry funds and neither a huge swath of retail investors and high net worth. So looking forward to that. And what they can see with us when they look at a company like Aurora, there's probably four major points. So first of all, resource quality. We've got, the largest measured and indicated uranium deposit in the USA. It's a conventional deposit, so shallow open pit mining, very simple, straightforward style of mining. So number one, well-defined and scale. Although we've got scale, we're focusing on the shallower, high-grade portion of the deposit, so 485 ppm, which for a conventional operation is a decent grade when you've got easy mining environment. Then we're really fortunate because we've got good infrastructure, because this is a historical mining district. So roads accessible to the deposit, hydroelectricity, so clean, green, reliable, and cost-effective power, right on our doorstep for where we plan to actually position the plant. Which leads to the next question, the next point, which is we have this clear pathway to development. And that being there where I spoke about the plant location, that's actually in Nevada, even though the deposit is in Oregon, 8 km apart. The reason for that is to capture the benefit of that infrastructure close to the roads, the power, and the local town. But also, Nevada is a mining state and Oregon is less so. That makes our permitting approach that much more understandable and clearly defined than Oregon. So we permit effectively a quarry in Oregon and the plant in Nevada. And then the final point that works in our favor is that this is a great jurisdiction, the USA. It's great because, here we have bipartisan support for nuclear. Nuclear support amongst the general public is at an all-time high. So there are none of these silly, uninformed or ill-informed or purposely misleading debates that are going on, for example, in Australia. This is a country that's focused on, my goodness me, this is what we need, and we're committing to it big time. But of course, they have hardly any uranium production. So once again, that works in our favor because they're desperate to reestablish their own domestic nuclear supply chain, not just when it comes to uranium production, but other parts of the nuclear fuel cycle as well. So there's all these attributes that just contribute to a great asset with an exciting future.
And Greg, does the higher uranium price change much in terms of how the company will approach the scoping study?
Not really. It certainly brings other opportunities closer to home for us. But, we just got the head down and we're working through as we need to do the scoping study. And there's so much historical work has been done. But the reality is there's just a few things that need to be nuanced. And a key driver of that is, of course, the metallurgical test work that's going on now, because there were points we're learning from other people or from historical work that's been done. But some of the work, they ran out of steam and funding 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And now we have the ability to actually finalize that and demonstrate to the market the real value of this particular project.
And the last time you spoke, you said that you had just started to put the feelers out with potential offtake partners, albeit the trigger would ultimately be the scoping study. With the price now at a 15-year high, does that open the door to expedite these discussions?
It certainly does. Specifically utilities in the US that are so desperate to secure uranium supply in the medium term. So, they're okay for the next 4 years or so, but come 2029, 2030, then, there's a real crunch looming. And when you then take that in conjunction with, for example, the legislation, the prohibiting Russian uranium imports legislation, which is on the books and is at the Senate level at the moment. If that goes through, well, then it's kind of your existing largest supplier gets cut off. And people have been saying, but it only, they can get exemptions until 2027. Those exemptions are not going to be easy to elicit. So from 90 days from when the Senate passes that bill, it's law. Of course, the other side is that the Russians are already warning and saying, well, we don't need your bill. We'll just stop supplying you. So all this, it's got utilities thinking, how do we position ourselves to secure that supply in the short to the medium and then the medium to the long term? And we certainly come in the medium to long term. And that opens up the opportunity for them to come in potentially at the asset level, so that they say, well, if we funded the asset level, which is less dilutionary for our shareholders, that could then mean that they get direct access to maybe it's 25% or 30% of our ultimate production. And that would be attractive from both sides.
Greg, on one hand, you're operating in the world's largest nuclear market with negligible domestic production. On the other, you've got one of the largest deposits in the US. Seems like Aurora is in a pretty strong position. What's in store over the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, look, the focus is entirely scoping study related and the metallurgical test work. And we've got some exciting work going on behind the scenes in that regard in terms of the met test work that we've done that I've referred to. But then there's also important steps forward with regards to permitting visibility and transparency. And that's really important because some of our investors have expressed concerns about, how does one go about permitting in Oregon? And the reality is, you've got a gold project that's just about to get a permit in Oregon, and that's with a plant in Oregon. And people have said, impossible to do that. I say, well, hang on a minute. Just look at Paramount Gold. If they can do it, why can't we? Similar sort of process. So that permitting transparency is important, and we've got some great advisors that are working with us to actually make sure that we know exactly how to take this forward. And the consistent message is, this can be done in 3 years in terms of the permitting program. I guess the other aspect is this engagement with utilities and looking for a strategic partner to help fund and therefore accelerate our program. And in the background, we're doing the exploration plan of operations, which is a logical step forward to have a larger footprint of exploration work done on the ground. And when I say exploration work, bear in mind, we do not need to drill another hole from an exploration point of view. It's to generate more core for the next level, the next stage or the phase of metallurgical test work into PFS and DFS level accuracy. So that's what's keeping us busy and keeping me sometimes up at night as well.
That was Greg Cochran, Managing Director of Aurora Energy Metals. Greg, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. A great opportunity. Much appreciated. Thanks, Chris.